Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, Manila and Tokyo set to boost ties as Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida begins his official visit to the Philippines today. And the Foreign Affairs Department criticizes China for accusing the Philippines of trespassing near Bajo de Masinloc. It says China is the one intruding in Philippine waters, and its claim only serves to raise tension in the West Philippine Sea. And we also get to know the country's possible legal options against Beijing. Former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Francis Jardeleza joins us live in the studio. And the country is welcoming Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida today as he is set to begin his two-day official visit. Kishida and President Bongbong Marcos are expected to tackle defense cooperation in the West Philippine Sea and iron out a potential deal similar to Manila's visiting forces agreement with Washington. His trip comes on the heels of the exchange of criticisms between the Philippines and China after the Foreign Affairs Department refuted China's territorial claims in Bajo de Masinloc. The Marcos administration reiterated it does not need Chinese permission to operate in Philippine waters, and China is the one, in fact, flaring tensions by intruding in the West Philippine Sea. The Justice Department previously said the Philippine government is studying its next legal steps against China. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Francis Jardeleza. Justice, it's so good to see you again.
Good morning, Pinky.
Retired but not tired.
Yes.
As they say. Let's start with first, this is very important because I again watched the documentary on Beyond the Horizon. And very important, of course, is Bajo de Masinloc.
Yes.
Tell us, Justice, what exactly was the ruling of the arbitral tribunal with regards to Bajo de Masinloc?
Well, the tribunal said very clearly that Bajo de Masinloc is within our EEC. Therefore, it is within our jurisdiction. Now, springing from that, we have all the rights, sovereign rights over Bajo de Masinloc.
Very clear. It's within the Philippines 200
Yes.
nautical mile exclusive economic zone.
Yes.
So, Justice, what should be done? They are saying we are intruding. We are saying, no, you are intruding.
Well, there is so much to be done with Bajo de Masinloc, but unfortunately, the Chinese vessels, the Chinese Coast Guard vessels and the Chinese militia vessels are there. Now, with respect to the interference, the military interference of the Chinese, there's not much legal recourse that we can have. So we will have to do it the way that we're doing it today. We have our Coast Guard, our Navy trying to run interference with their interference.
Mm-hmm. The presence of the Chinese Coast Guard in the Philippines exclusive economic zone, not just the Chinese Coast Guard, Justice, but also the Chinese maritime militia. What can we do, and is there a way to be able to get them out? Why? Because even in the ruling, rather in that Beyond the Horizon documentary, which I believe a lot of people should actually watch, is that you were saying that there is definitely freedom of navigation, but you are not supposed to stay still in those waters, which they have done. So is there any case or anything, any move that can be done to tell them they can't be hanging out there and anchoring there for days or even weeks?
Well, unfortunately, Pinky, in international law, we have all the rights, but we have no so-called international policeman. There is no somebody there to say, you get out of this place if you have no right. That is where we are. We have all the rights, but if a naval presence is there, We cannot just take the law into our own hands. That is why the standoff will continue for some time, I'm afraid.
Because no one will enforce this, to which, going back, Justice, I think it's also good to note that way back, the late President Noynoy Aquino had asked that question. When you, together with the team, were going to file this case before the Permanent Court of Arbitration, he said, why should I do this? The late President said, why should the government spend so much money when it cannot be enforced? Because you had warned him back then that there will be no enforcement in the event that we win. And to that you answered?
The thing, Pinky, is in law, there is such a thing as you clarify first what are your rights, and then you enforce your rights. What we did was one step at a time. We had to clarify our rights. Who owns the seas around Masinloc? Who can be there? That's a matter of law. Now, of course, we knew that in international law, if we win that point, we cannot enforce it. But that's already half the battle. So we filed a case to clarify our rights. Because you think of it, Pinky, had we not filed the case, up to now, China will say, oh, we have a right to be there. So everybody, it's a matter of press releases. But now, at least we have the clarification of law. That's what we told President Aquino.
But isn't it also true, please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, is that when it comes to the term, I guess, ownership, it wasn't the PCA, the arbitral tribunal, that actually classified who owned who. And I believe there is another court for this, which should be the International Court of Justice. Is that correct, sir?
Yes,
And
yes.
please expound.
Yes, in international law, Pinky, who owns territory belongs to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. Who owns territory? Who owns Bajo de Masinloc? So the problem there is for a court to acquire jurisdiction over that issue, the two parties, the Philippines and China, must consent. And the problem is China will never consent because we know that if we go to court over who owns a certain part of the territory, for example, Masinloc, we know that we are strong. We have all the evidence. So they refuse to join. Now, that is why we filed the case over the UNCLOS. We just filed the case not over the land itself, Bajo de Masinloc, but over the oceans.
The features.
No, not even the feature, Pinky, is the Bajo de Masinloc is a feature. That's a landmass, a small landmass. Now, you cannot have a case before the UNCLOS on who owns the small features that belongs to the ICJ, where China has to consent to jurisdiction. But on the oceans, the sea around the feature, that belongs to the jurisdiction of UNCLOS, a treaty where China has agreed to be bound by compulsory jurisdiction.
By UNCLOS?
By UNCLOS.
Okay, so is it right to say, Justice, that the PCA talked about the waters?
The waters.
But if you talk about owning actual features or land, that will be the International Court of Justice.
Yes.
So here's a question, sir. Is it futile to bring this before the ICJ because we know that China will not participate?
Yes, to bring a case over ownership of territory.
Yes.
In my view, it is futile. That is why years ago we did not resort to that.
But that's exactly what also China did with the PCA. They refused to participate in the proceedings.
This is now where we are. So they refused to participate when we brought the case several years ago.
2013.
So we won the case. Okay, we won the case over the waters. Now, what I am saying now, and what the Secretary of Justice is saying, is we file a new case, like a second part to what we filed.
Okay.
It is about the environmental degradation that China did to the waters just the waters.
Yeah. Still talking about the water. So
Yes,
let's
yes.
discuss that because it was DOJ Secretary Boying Remulla. Although this was already even discussed a few months ago, said he met with you and a few others regarding what possible moves the government can do with regards to, we're talking about the environmental case against the harvesting, the massive harvesting of corals in the West Philippine Sea. In other words, these are corals which are part of the 200 nautical mile, already ruled by the Philippine Court of Arbitration. What are your thoughts on this, and where should a case be filed?
Well, first, we can file, we should file a case to, to build on what we have already won. For example, Mischief Reef is within our 200 nautical miles. They built structures there. The tribunal very clearly said there is damage to the environment.
Yeah.
The only thing is we did not quantify how much is the damage. So the logical thing to do now is to file a case, quantify the damage, and then seek damages, as in monetary damages against China.
But
now,
again,
this is not a perfect world. That means we cannot get back Mischief Reef unless we have a powerful navy where we can throw them out. But we have to deal with the cards we are dealt with. We have this remedy of going against China based on what we won. We can have monetary damages for what they did to Mischief Reef.
very quickly though, but when you say what we want, that's coming from obviously the PCA ruling. Are you saying file a supplemental case with regards to environmental damage or file an independent case with the same tribunal? Ganun ho ba yun?
It is going to be, I think, that's going to be thrashed out by the team. But it's basically, I think, still with the PCA, whether it is a new case, it is definitely a new case, we have to make a new filing. But we are not going to file as in it's a clear slate. We're going to file pointing to the previous case. That's what we call, the lawyers call, the law of the case. There is already a previous case. So we are building on a win.
What is it called? The law of the case.
The law of the case.
That's what possibly the Philippines will do. We just need to take a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Francis Jardeleza. So build on a case that we earlier won with the PCA, which you call the law of the case. Do we have justice? Kasi this will be we will be paid, supposed to be. We'll ask for damages from the environmental degradation. Were you able to talk about how much we should be seeking in terms of damages?
No, not yet, Pinky. That's why my opinion I've given to Secretary Remulla is we should have done the preparations yesterday. Because number one, you have to get our experts to say how much was damaged. For example, Mischief Reef. With China building so many structures there, how much damage to the reefs? How much damage to the fishes? I'm just talking of Mischief Reef. Now, you need scientists. So I told him that the Filipino scientists are very good. We have very good scientists. I know some of them have made preliminary studies, no? But you need, in a court case, you cannot just have all Filipinos as your witnesses. You need experts. So you need, kailang kamada mo pa, you have to get these experts. And then they will have to come to a figure which will be credible, which you can support in court. And then once you get the figure, you have to give the evidence. And then once, hopefully we win, you file now what is called, how do we enforce it? Because the next question is, if China will not pay. There is a treaty called the New York Convention.
Yes.
The New York Convention means that once you win in a country, you can go to another country to enforce the judgment. For example, the best case will be a Filipina marries a Japanese in Japan and then takes a divorce, files a case in Japan for divorce, it takes a lot of money to prosecute a case in Japan. Well, the Filipina now is not required to go back to the Philippines and to refile the whole case. She will get the judgment in Japan, get evidence of the win in Japan, and bring it to a Philippine court. Apply it here. But
submit rather.
Submit. Yeah. There is a convention. There is a treaty again. This so-called New York Convention.
And how does that, for example, apply in the event that we win
now,
and China refuses to pay?
Pinky, you remember the recent case of the claim on Sabah? Remember, there was a Filipino group, an heirs of Sulu. They filed a case I think in Spain. Now they were very smart. They did not file a case against Malaysia for ownership. They just filed a case for an increase of rent. But see, the evidence was in I don't know, a long time ago the rent was only so much.
Yeah.
But now with experts, they saw the rent now is mind-boggling.
Okay.
And then when they won the case in Spain, they went to France to enforce it. That they were using the so-called New York Convention. But unfortunately, well, first I think what happened, Malaysia did not mind the case in Spain. So, hindi nila, but then, natauhan sila nung the enforcement case. Now, the case was thrown out. It was thrown out in France because of technicalities. But if we have a strong case, we have good lawyers, and then we file a case na walang loopholes, because under the New York Convention, there are again defenses. You have to file a case. Now, for example, if we win, where do we file a case? Now, definitely, I will not recommend that we file a case in Manila. Because makakagulo tayo dito sa Manila. And then, there's a tactical reason. If you file the case in Manila, it will be a Manila court. So you file it in a financial center like New York.
I see. All right. Justice, we just need to take a short break. We will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Francis Jardeleza. In summary, Justice, what should be done? Like what you were saying during the break, so that it can be you can explain it better.
I think, Pinky, and as I have expressed to Secretary Remulla, we needed to be ready yesterday. We need first, the most important thing is to get the mandate of the President to decide. It's a political decision to file a case. Because if the President does not agree to file a case, nobody can file a case. No private party can go to the UNCLOS.
The President, of course, being the chief architect of foreign policy.
Yes.
Okay. So did Secretary Remulla say, we have the President's go signal? Or was it like during the Aquino administration when he ordered and he asked, Paquito Ochoa, ES called you and said, pag-aralan natin to, together with the DFA, the late Albert Del Rosario, etc. And then we move forward. Where are we right now?
Well, I think after my talk with Secretary Remulla, when Secretary Remulla said he has the mandate of the President. Now, I checked with Executive Secretary Bersamin and Secretary of Defense, Teodoro, and they confirmed to me that indeed Secretary Remulla has the mandate of the President. So I think that I'm just waiting for what will happen next, but I think we are on the right track. But ang sabi ko kay Secretary Remulla, do it very fast.
Opo.
Because the Secretary Remulla has to consult with experts, a Filipino. We have to do it. We get the, for example.
And we have to have the budget for it, sir.
Well, the budget will not be a problem kasi nung time ni President Aquino, he took it from one of the presidential funds. From the contingent funds. You don't need Congress to appropriate. Especially if we get Filipino councils.
Yeah.
We have the OSG, we have the the lawyers of the Secretary of Justice.
So no more foreign lawyers?
No, I think the Executive Secretary Bersamin has told me that that is not yet decided because this is such a big thing. I will argue that no more foreign lawyers, meaning the lawyers to argue should not be paid. Meaning, we can get consultants. We definitely need all the help that we need. We need consultants. But ang consultants, Pinky, iba sa mag-argue magkakamada ng case. Now, we need to pay the experts na, because this is a case for damages now. Right. Very critical, the credibility of the experts.
Here's a question, Justice. There was a suggestion to use Sea of Asia. Did you agree?
I agree. That is a suggestion of Attorney Tony Oposa, and I have no problem with that. I fully endorse the Sea of Asia. Why? Because the tribunal's award to us. Why do I talk strongly about a case over Mischief Reef? Because that's included in the tribunal's award. Now, but beyond Mischief Reef, there are 6 other reefs which the tribunal said were subject of degradation by China. And these 6 reefs, Pinky, are outside our EEC. This is where perfectly the idea of Tony Oposa comes
Sea
in.
of Asia.
Sea of Asia.
Because there are other areas that are not part of the 200 nautical miles.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's perfectly that. But I hear a lot of brickbats from fellow Filipino lawyers against it. But, this is a time when we have to pull together all the minds of the Filipinos.
But Justice, why not still call it West Philippine Sea and Sea of Asia, or would that be confusing? Because I guess there's that mindset that if you call it Sea of Asia and not West Philippine Sea, and a part of it really is the West Philippine Sea, it's almost like diluting the West Philippine Sea win in the PCA ruling in 2016. Because there's something here that needs that I wanted to share, which came again from that documentary. That from the finding that certain areas this is the PCA ruling, are within the exclusive economies, none of the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, China had violated A, by interfering with Philippine fishing and petroleum exploration, B, constructing artificial islands, C, failing to prevent Chinese fishermen from fishing the zone. They already said it in the ruling that we won in 2016. So why not still use West Philippine Sea?
I'm saying, Pinky, we still use West Philippine Sea with respect to that ruling. But I'm calling attention that the ruling included not only what you read, it included 6 other reefs outside our EEC. These are not technically within the West Philippine Sea. That is why, even if you don't use the terminology being suggested by Tony Oposa, we still claim that China has to pay for all of the 6 other reefs outside our EEC. Now, why not call it Sea of Asia? You need the terminology, parang diskarte.
Why not West Philippine Sea and beyond?
Well, because there's
West Philippine Sea and South China Sea.
Now there is a reason why, and I agree with Tony Oposa. You have to win the neighboring countries slowly, because I'm not even sure that if we get damages over the 6, that the dollar damage will go to us. It might go to a trust fund for these other countries. So we cannot be parochial about this.
And I guess could you possibly lose if you lose, or if we lose, you could lose on technicality because there are other areas here which are actually not part of the West Philippine Sea, I guess?
I don't think we can lose on technicality, because we have been over that in the first case. The fact that there are other countries, that did not join us. The tribunal did not take it as a good argument.
Yeah.
Now,
So, Justice, sorry, I'll try. There's still one very important question that needs to be asked here. When should we file the case? How soon should government decide on this?
my advice to my position to Secretary Remulla is we should have prepared yesterday. We should file the soonest possible time that we are ready. We have to be ready. We cannot just say we filed today and we haven't even...
How long do you think it'll take till we're ready?
I think it will take a couple of months at least. I mean, we cannot file today because we haven't even formed our team yet.
Okay.
You know, in a case, you need only one team. You cannot run a litigation by committee. That's what we have learned. That's what we have learned in the past.
And when you have one team, you still have that team to bring this to the president, to which the president will make that decision to give you the go signal or not.
But when we go to when the team goes to the president, they have to be ready already with who are the witnesses, who are going to speak.
What's the evidence?
What's the evidence? Pinky is very important.
All right. We'll continue to monitor what will happen. I know that Secretary Remulla also said that possibly early next year, but I'm sure it's not as easy as we think, and this needs to be very well thought of. Former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Francis Jardeleza. Sir, so good to see you. I hope to speak to you again when this progresses, and take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.